करते हैं, so most of the time we feel that self understanding is a very basic thing. Why do we need to discuss? We at such levels of being counselors and psychologists are preaching this term self understanding on regular basis to hundreds of people all around, and why to discuss about it? But trust me, as per our scriptures, as per everything, it takes a life to understand self. Even a life of exploration is not sufficient to help you in understanding of a basic self, but surely certain tools can help us out in a better way. So here we have with us Mr. Roshan D'Souza. He will discuss this topic with us in a better way, and I'm hoping that we will learn certain tools and tricks from him regarding the same. Please welcome to the session, Roshan. I would hand over the panel to you now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Surbi, for that introduction. I think it was a bit exaggerated, but yes, I'm just a human being at the end of the day. And I chose to study because that's an aspect that helps us improve. Now, today's topic is Pehchan. Pehchan basically in Hindi means understanding. And we are focusing today on a very vast but simple topic, that's Pehchan. Pehchan of self, the self-understanding of who we are and what we do. Now, most of us, as I was hearing, are either trainers or counselors, or they are in the habit of building a career of helping others. Now, before helping others, the one thing we have to always keep in mind is if we ourselves are not happy, how can we give happiness to others? If we ourselves are not knowledgeable, how can we share that knowledge with others? The whole understanding of the self is first fill your own cup before you try to fill someone else's cup. I listened to a lot of Buddha-based preaching, and in all this preaching, Buddha makes one thing very clear. He says you can only give in abundance to others what you have overflowing from yourself. Now, the question that we have to ask is what exactly is it that's overflowing in our own being? The question that we would need to ask ourselves, what triggers us to get happy? What triggers us to get sad? What triggers us to have an emotional burst, be it for the good or the bad? We have associated with the dogma of saying that women cry and men don't cry. Now, in recent years, we have come to understand that is not that's not the truth. Men also love to cry, but because of societal pressures, they don't cry. Women are much more stronger than men, but unfortunately, they're not been given that opportunity to go and excel in their own ways. Now, how exactly is that less than 5% in the world actually go and succeed in whatever they look out for, and the others are always struggling for their goals to be accomplished? The basic aspect of this is one is the understanding of themselves and then the understanding of the environment. There's an old adage that says, it's from a movie called The Runaway Bride, in which it's the characters played by Julia Roberts. And the question asked was, how do you like your egg? And the character in the movie is such, is that every time she falls in love with a person, she likes their eggs that the way her eggs are made as per the other person's liking. She never has a clue of what exactly she likes. Like for us, the simple thing that we have been born into this world, but our likes and dislikes have been nurtured by the experiences that we had. None of it is truly our liking. So for example, you might have gone to an ice cream shop, and at that time you might have had a good ice cream. So your subconscious mind then goes and tells you that this ice cream is your favorite. But maybe you might like a variety of ice creams. Now, have you exactly asked yourself this question? Who am I? When I go to schools, colleges, and corporates and I deliver trainings and I ask this question, most of them are dumbfounded and they take time to answer this question themselves. Who am I is the greatest question that many people have failed to answer. People are very much, they're very much averse to understanding themselves, but it's very easy to understand everything else around them. They may have degrees and postgraduate degrees in various subjects across the border. It might be doctorate, it might be accounting, might be science, might be commerce, maybe arts, any of them. But when you ask about themselves, that's when they stumble and they fall. I know many counselors and psychologists who have not really gone ahead and understood themselves to actually go and help the other person. They may be very good in their fields, but at the end of the day, they're not really delivering the rightful solution for the person as they need. Very recently, one of my friends was telling me, Roshan, how can you be a counselor? I asked him, why? What makes me a bad counselor? He said, because you've got so many problems in your life. So how can you counsel others when you have those problems? The simple question I asked him is, do you think that I'm of stable mind? He said, yes, obviously. He said, do you think that I do anything eccentric out of the blue that someone else may not do? He says, no, you don't do that. You're very thoughtful. He said, then I asked him, is then what makes you think that I'm a bad counselor? He said, because you have problems in your life. Now, it's not necessary that a counselor is God. It's not necessary that a counselor will never have problems in their lives. This is some kind of wrong understanding that people stand with it, of saying that problems only with common people. Well, doctors, lawyers, counselors, they all fall in the same boat of being common people. They are not any different from anyone else. I mean, we all, as far as I can see, I still have my eyes, my nose, my feet. All of them are still very much as a human being. I've not changed my physical being just because I became a counselor or a psychologist. Likewise, our mind is also of the similar being. It's Our mind is like a field. It doesn't matter what you plant in that field. It can be rice, it can be wheat, it can be sugarcane, it could be anything you like. Now, more times than none, unfortunately, our mind is riddled with negative thoughts. And these are the thoughts that actually restrict us from achieving our dreams. When my son was born, there was one thing I always repeated to him, and today he's come to believe it at 7 years of age, is that if you believe that you want something, believe it with all your heart without a doubt into it. The day you have a doubt is the day you start struggling. The day you have any kind of negative thought in your goal, in your accomplishment, you start struggling on that basis. The one thing that we have to understand about ourselves is that the universe is there to go ahead and give you everything in abundance. But are we asking that abundance from the universe? Before even asking the abundance, are we even realizing what is the size of the universe? Our universe, not the universe outside of us. The importance of this is very simple. We as beings have not really understood the quantum science that exists around us. There's quantum physics, there's quantum biology, there's quantum chemistry, there's quantum astronomy, things that people have not seen and heard, but there's something that they understand. Science, psychologists by itself understand that there's a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. Now, have you tried to understand this part, this aspect of us a little better? The challenge that we have is that we have never accepted us for who we are. We have classified ourselves, and I may be saying something very sensitive over here, but this is the truth and this is a reality. We've classified ourselves as citizens of different nations. We've classified ourselves as being fair or being dark or being brownish. We've classified ourselves as being a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, a Jain, a Sikh, and so on and so forth. But what we have not classified ourselves is, who am I exactly? Is it that I follow a principle because I've been taught that principle? Or is it that I follow something because I personally like it? Now, for me, I kept questioning myself a lot throughout my life, and that's why I ended up in psychology, is because I question myself, why am I being called a Christian? Why am I being called a person of a certain religion when I am not really following a certain religion? I'm very agnostic in that way. The question that kept pondering me is, why is it that I like a certain flavor of ice cream? Why is it I like a certain color? Why do I like a certain shape? Why do I like going to a certain place? The constant questioning of the why helped me understand myself much better over the last 20 years of my career. The whole understanding as of today is that we have not really understood ourselves because we don't have a goal of understanding. The goal of our understanding is, and this is something that most of the HR executives or the managers would be asking questions when you go for an interview. What is your 5-year plan? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? What do you see yourself doing 10 years from now? The whole basis of this question is to understand the goal and the perspective of a person. How well are they into um, getting their goals achieved? Now, most of the times, the HR asks the question just as a cyclical question without really understanding the real motive behind the question. Is it really making sense of asking such a question? Whenever you hear this question the next time, understand that it is for you to analyze yourself. Have I set myself a goal? If, for example, I've set myself a goal of reaching at least 1 billion hearts. Now, I know that goal may not be achieved in this lifetime, but at least I'm pursuing towards a goal that if not 1 billion, maybe 5,000, maybe 10,000, maybe 40,000, maybe 100,000. I'm really not sure what is the extent that I can go to reach that billion. But my goal is continuous. As many people as I can, I try to help them. And more importantly, I help myself. Now, in the process of helping myself, there's a constant improvement because my goal is set of helping others. And before helping others, I've got to know the way of helping them. In pursuing that goal, I'm able to improve myself. I'm able to understand myself. Now, you may be an engineer, you may be a doctor. As our colleagues over here, most of them have introduced themselves as educators or counselors or trainers. At any point in time, you'll be facing an audience. When facing an audience, the one question they'll ask you will be the one that will actually go ahead and motivate you to be different in your life. Are you ready to answer that one question? There may be other questions you have an answer for, but this one question will actually go ahead and change the way that you think in your life. Does it make sense? Now, what eventually happens is that we are not ever prepared for this question. And this question sometimes gives us the silent treatment from our own head, from our own mind, from our own body. Are you ready for the world? Is the one question you have to ask yourself. The self-understanding is a very vast topic. I think 20 minutes by itself is too short a time for us to share the whole detail of it, because when I interact with people, I normally have a one-to-one session with them, and this is only a one-way street. It's a monologue that I'm sharing right now, which may or may not attract questions. But the main thing of understanding yourself, there are certain tools that you can use. One, write down of it and publish it in a place where you can see it very often. It may be in your bedroom, it might be in your work spot, it might be in your bathroom, it might be in a mirror. Anyway that you look very regularly in a day. That place where your eyes set on regularly, set your goals on that spot. The next part is associate yourself with the right people in your lives. Sometimes you have Draculas and vampires around you. They may be your family members, they may be your friends, they may be your colleagues. These vampires are negative associations in your life. These Draculas suck away all the good energy from you in your life, and they are forever negating in themselves. They'll say, oh my God, this lockdown, ab kya karunga, is lockdown mein kuch nahi ho sakta apna. We are not going to get any business out of it. We're going to lose. We are negative this. My mother-in-law said this. My father-in-law said this. My brother-in-law said this. My mother said this. My father said that. My wife said this. My husband said that. They are in a constant bickering state of their life. They will crib about anything and everything around them. They may be having the sweetest of sweets, and they'll say, oh, this is not soft enough like my mother would cook, or this is not as good as this one place or that one place. So they're in constant negativity. When you see such people, it's better to avoid them. It doesn't matter if you hurt them or not, but avoid them. It's for your own growth and for your own development. The people you associate with makes a very large momentum in achieving your goals and understanding yourself. the friends that you keep, the family, the spousal bride or groom that you choose. It makes a huge difference in what your life will be in the future. That's very important for us. The third main aspect is every time before going to sleep and after waking up, have positive thoughts in your mind. Think something positive of what you've done in the day and what you have to do for the next day into it. It's so very important for us to have this process in place because before going to bed, that's when you have your rapid eye movement and you go into theta stage. That's when your subconscious mind comes alive. They would like to have a good thought in mind before you go to sleep because all those thoughts resonate into dreams, and those dreams become thoughts, and those thoughts become your reality. So the way you think is very important. So the first thought after you wake up and the last thought before you go to sleep in the night is very important for you because these are the ones that I can actually make a change. And believe me, by experience, I tell you, there's nothing you can't achieve and there's nothing that you can't do into it. It all depends on how much you want it and how much are you able to go ahead and achieve it. I'm sure Mr. Vinod Babu will be speaking on NLP, will be stressing about a little more on this because NLP is another function of psychology in which you actually talk a lot about the mind and you actually go ahead and understand the mind a little better. But from here on forth, if you just practice these three basic steps, only three, write down your goals and may publish it in a place where you can actually read it on a daily basis. Two, associate with the right people in your life and ensure that they are the ones who add positivity into your life as much as you would add positivity. And three, ensure at any point of time that you have your positive thoughts before going to bed and after you wake up. If through the day you have negative thoughts, also you can go ahead and overpower them with your positive thoughts. Positive thinking has been a huge tool into achieving their dreams. And no matter how bad the circumstance, you might be facing the lion, and this might be the last breath you take. But at the end of the day, all that you can do is know that the lion will be having a good meal. Be positive in it because you have gone and made yourself a nice fat meal for the lion and you've fed the lion. Or you can have another positive thought of saying, how can I defeat the lion and move ahead? That is the other big challenge. But I think we leave that challenge for another day and time so we can go and face that challenge much better. Right now, we can just go ahead and see how best is it that we can understand ourselves to make our lives much better. Any question and answers, you can ask it now and I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities.
Thank you very much, Roshan. It was a wonderful session. The panel is open for questions. If you have any questions, please chime in. Though I would like to elaborate the point that you made in the beginning, that help yourself before you help others. Even airlines, while we are flying, वो सबसे पहले यही बात करते हैं, किसी और का मास्क लगाने से पहले खुद का लगाइए. So yes, if you are yourself as a counselor are full of bad energies and you're not self-confident or self-satisfied with your own inner self, it's difficult to help out others. So you had a point. I have a doubt. I have a question. I don't know about others. You made a point that when you are in doubt, if you are in doubt, you cannot achieve a goal or you cannot succeed in life if you are doubtful about something. I, on the contrary, have another thought process. I cannot go ahead and do things just because I trust my inner gut. I have a gut feeling, but I also have to doubt it, and that is some sort of a doubt which gives me a scope of research. Because if I'm not doubting on what the things I'm doing, I may be following something in a very blind way. So I always keep that section of doubt. So when you say that you should not at all doubt yourself, what is that explanation or elaboration you are giving there? That's my one question.
Sure. So the doubt that you have is a research-based doubt to understand more. That doubt is definitely required in anyone that we have in our lives. It's so important for us to have that doubt because that leads to curiosity, and curiosity leads to more and better knowledge into it. That's very important for us at the end of the day. But the doubt that I speak out is the doubt in the goal to be achieved. Now, the doubt in the goal to be achieved is, if I, for example, say that I want to go and buy a house in the next 5 years' time, I should have the complete conviction that I want to buy that house in 5 years' time itself. I want to buy a car, or I want to go for a holiday to an international destination. What are my goals? My goals should not have any doubt. And no matter what the hurdles come on the way, my goal should be very clear in my head. So, for example, I may have a goal of, say, I want to buy a 4 BHK house in Bombay, which costs about, say, 8 crores of rupees. And I give myself a timeline of, say, 5 years' time from now, I have to be worthy of buying that house. Now, that is the goal which I say don't have a doubt on it. Work from it. Work in all the possible angles. Do a backward integration of your goal. Do a forward integration of what is you need to do, what you need to do from today, and start working so that you have that kind of finance at the end of the period so you can buy it. Start repeating this in your mind in a positive thought so that your thoughts are more repetitive and you actually go and achieve the goal in the time frame that you have captured for yourself. People have doubts in that, and it's too difficult here. बहुत मुश्किल वाली चीज है. It's not so easy. 8 crores. You know what 8 crores is? I barely make X amount of money today and you want me to earn 8 crores? Baap re. That's too much. That's having the doubt, which I'm saying don't have the doubt. Challenges are there in life, and if challenges were not there in life, innovation would have not happened. So be happy when you have a challenge. Be excited when you have something that you have to fight for. Be excited when there's something that you don't know. I mean, when I don't know something, I get thoroughly excited and I don't sleep all night until I don't find out the answer. It's so exciting because the world is a playground for us and we don't know everything. No matter how much you try to study, it's not sufficient. So the goal is the doubt, which I'm saying don't have that doubt. But the doubt that you have, Surbhi, is very much important. You need to have that curiosity and you need to keep building the curiosity in every little thing that you do, so that the improvement is never ending. It's like a Japanese saying that goes, it's known as Gemba Kaizen. Gemba Kaizen is a Six Sigma based process in which you actually have continuous improvement in your workplace. Here, your workplace is yourself. Yourself, your body is the work. How can you improve yourself is something you have to see on that and keep your goal in mind as you improve yourself. If I have to achieve that goal of getting my house, I got to improve myself with knowledge, with acumen, with skills, with delivery methods, with everything else that is there, so that I can earn the monies to go and buy the house.
Okay.
That is the doubt which I was saying not to have.
Thank you, Roshan. I have one more question, because I feel that discussion with you is more like I'm mining for diamonds. The deeper I will go, the interesting and lucrative it will become. But I don't want to go that deep in this session because we have two more speakers. I have this question by Ashish. I want you to keep it very brief so that we can have a next speaker on panel. The question is how to identify that my feeling is a gut feeling. Usually, how to clear that head, heart, and gut feeling when it comes to goal. You know, I also have a similar thing which Ashish says. People say, "Dimag se mat socho, dil se socho, dil se na socho, gut feeling socho." Only question is how to differentiate between three of them. And he has a very good point. I love this question actually. So, do you have any answer to this question?
Wow, that's a very vast answer that I have to give on that. There are multiple subjects. There are this 3 brain model that is there, which deals with 3 different sides of the brain, or the mind, the heart, and the gut.
I give you 1 minute. And that's it.
So I'll summarize it. Let me just summarize it to the best of my ability also. So there are many thoughts in this process. There's a school of thought that has where there's a 3 brain mind, in which you have the brain that's logical, the brain that's emotional, and the brain that is of your subconscious mind, or the gut-based feeling. It's like when you go somewhere and you have a gut-based feeling. Now, in summary, if I may share with you, a gut-based feeling is very reactive feeling. You should not go with a gut-based feeling ever in life. Go more with a heart-based feeling. A heart-based feeling takes time for it to develop. It's not overnight. I mean, this whole episode of saying, I love at first sight. The love at first sight is a gut-based feeling. Arey, ladka dikhi, ladki dikhi, "Arey, this is beautiful, yeah, amazing, so nice." But after you spend some time with that girl or that guy for that matter, you realize that, oops, maybe this person is not really my type and I don't want it. That is a logical feeling. And if you have the heart based feeling, no matter what the person does, you still feel happy of it after 2, 3, 4 months' time. No matter how they behave, you say, okay, fine, no problem, I can tolerate. That's a heart based feeling. So, heart based feeling takes time to develop. A gut based feeling is very proactive and very reactive based feeling. And logical mind, दिमाग से जो मन है, they are very logically based, and very few people have the logical mind. But if you have a combination of the heart and the logic mind, that's where you actually find success. Because the heart can get you emotionally imbalanced, and the logical mind, the brain, it actually gets you on the logical balance of saying, yes, this makes sense, it doesn't make sense. So my say would be, have a balance between the heart and the mind. Forget the gut feeling. The gut feelings come and go. They're nice to enjoy. They're nice to get excited about. But eventually, you got to have your feet on the ground, and you cannot fly on clouds. So yeah, that would be my short-term answer. But obviously, it's a very vast subject. Hey, thanks. Yeah, I'm sure you. I like that comment. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think even Ashish loves the answer. He is glad that you shared this answer. Thank you for being our speaker for the day. And now would like to move to our next speaker. We have Pujori Basu ma'am. And she is a magnificent person, as I know her. She is an educator and a career counselor. She's a psychologist, a master in psychologist, and she spends most of her time with students. So I'm pretty sure she gets more time to interact and know them than what we get. And she's been practicing counseling and career counseling, to be specific, from a long time. So today we have her with us on a very interesting topic that we all desire, and it will take us towards happiness. I would love ma'am to share more of her views today with us. And please, if you have any questions, if you have any doubts during the session itself, just keep on writing the questions in the chat box. It gives us a track where to take the session. Secondly, if you love something, if you like something, there's always an option to mention that in chat section. It keeps the speaker motivated and even us motivated into the session. Thank you. Over to you, Pujori ma'am. Welcome for the session.
Good evening. Hope I am audible. Thank you, Surabhi, once again, and thank you for your magnificent words regarding me. It's such a wonderful thing that this topic of Roshan sir's journey of self-discovery, my topic on the pressure or the burden of happiness, and Vinod sir's pattern of mind. Believe me, audience, none of us really interacted apart from in the group of good morning and hi and just maybe posting our topics apart from that. But don't you think all these are somewhere related and one carries on to the other? And I think this is the cosmic relation we have with each other as mental health professionals when we decide to work again. I would like to see a few thumbs up if what I have said is really correct. Now, moving on to today's topic. The dress cost me 5,000 rupees. The diamond ring cost me 50 lakhs. The holiday on a cruise cost me 2.5 lakhs per person. And for everything else, there's perhaps that add MasterCard or Visa card. Well, my dear listeners, I am not here to sell or promote any cards. The topic for today is the pursuit of relentless happiness, or the burden or the pressure coming from it. Now, this topic of pursuit of happiness can lead us in all different directions. For many of us, it is like trying to find the rainbow, which seems so clear from very far. But a moment I try to get to that new location, it's just not there. So we are happy for a moment, and then the pursuit again continues. Now, this constant pursuit can become an emotional burden for us. Well, my friends, I am not here to advocate you against happiness or to promote unhappiness. What I just want to say is that just by buying a new things or embarking on new adventures or keeping a very busy schedule or just following a few social events is just a momentary happiness. Yes, all of these are important in our life. Our job is important, our work is important. More so that we know now is our leisure is important. Right now we are all confined into one certain physical space. Most of us are working from home and we really miss out on our recreation. Yes, all these are important, but the very fact that if constantly all these are giving me happiness, the moment these are not there, it's like the bubble has busted and immediately my happiness is taken away. So the whole idea here is, it's just an evening, there's nothing great that has happened to me, the stars are up there, or it's just that I'm having a cup of tea, or maybe not, and yet I am happy. So is it, now I'm going to ask you a few questions, which of course I do not want answers right away. It's just for a introspection, um, that what will exactly make me happy? What am I really looking for? Am I supposed to be happy? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? These questions and thoughts can lead to more happiness, or are these leading me to more frustration? And so the cycle continues. Where do we go from here? Now, the notion that happiness is that is it a life devoid of pain and sorrow and is filled with intimate, life-enhancing moments? Isn't this a fallacy that every moment I have to be happy? I cannot say that it's okay for me not to be okay at times. Everyone wants us to be happy. The self-help books wants, my boss wants, my parents wants, my spouse wants, my children wants, okay? And next time they ask me, how are you? Okay, great. Have we ever said, no, not really, I'm not really feeling good? Now, where is it stemming from? I believe our thoughts and emotions should mirror the world. If we are really aware of our unhappiness also, we are in touch with our reality. Now, when something bad really happens, whether it's pathetic or tragic or in any other way, really negative in our life, we should be allowed to feel those negative thoughts and feelings about us, because that's how we understand the world. Life is wonderful from time to time, but isn't it also tragic? So it is better for life to be tragic than to be pathetic. Now, if I say happiness is a choice, every time I am forced to make a choice, if I am forced to make a choice, isn't it becoming a burden on me? If you can maintain your happiness through your challenges, there are usually people you see who are naturally very chirpy, naturally very happy. There's nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with them. So if you can maintain your happiness through your challenges, then absolutely nobody would want to take it away from you. And absolutely no one has the right to dictate your private and public life. You do not know what challenges, but you do not know what your neighbors are facing the challenges. If you say you ought to be happy, why aren't you happy? Why is it that you're not happy? This today itself, I got you a PS4. Why aren't you happy? Then from the PS4, the something moves on to PS6. Now today, maybe I bought something, I am very happy. Again, the version of it changes after 2 years. Again, for that reason, I am happy. So every time, if happiness is dependent on a reason, I think we need to rethink our understanding. Now, often happiness is not just their attitude that makes the difference between good and bad. Sometimes the difference is not having a roof over your head. I am not getting 4 meals a day. I am losing loved ones. I am being torn apart. I have a miscarriage. Someone is a rape victim. There is a domestic abuse. People are terminally ill. If those telling others to be always happy, all of their problems, are able to do so in their own lives, then all power to them. But how presumptuous and full of privilege to expect others to do the same. Now, when we talk about happiness, it's actually a very vast topic. I know, but since this is our first meeting and really it's a session for us to get to know each other, and I've chosen this topic, I'm really putting it in a nutshell that the changing face and destigmatization of depression and other mental health conditions is often given as one of the most positive changes in attitudes of our current times. So instead of saying that, yes, I'm happy, and trying to brush the problems beneath the carpet, is it not okay to say, no, I'm really not well and I need to seek maybe professional help, maybe initially informal help within the family? All this can only come when there is a lot of awareness regarding mental health. So somewhere I think in this topic of happiness, the point of this awareness and the popularity of mental health, the awareness of mental health comes in. So if you are happy at this moment, live that happiness. Maintain that light as long as you are able to without burning it out. What I am really trying to say here is, do not attach your happiness always to something and your unhappiness always to something. If for no reason, I know it is a very difficult state for all of us to reach, like Roshan sir said, before we work on others, we need to work on ourselves. I know it's a pretty difficult thing to reach, that to be happy without a reason. But somewhere if we strive, somewhere if we try, maybe out of 50 times, even 5 times, I will be able to achieve it, that I am happy just without any reason. So let that happiness shine within you, radiate, and inspire people. Now, because this is a little bit of a time bound session, I have consciously put forward 3 points where you may say that so many things have gone wrong in my life, and how can I be happy? What do you say? There are so many reasons of unhappiness in my life, and ma'am, you ask me to be happy? Well, in a very nutshell, a little bit of guidance here. Pursue growth, growth in all ways, okay? Whether it is your physical health, mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, your hobbies. So when life gives you many twists and turns, some bring happiness and some do not. If you have the intention of growth, then you will look for that opportunities to learn and grow in every situation. With that growth, little bit, with that growth comes confidence. So even in a day, if I do something new, at least something that is new that I have done, or something that is differently I have done since yesterday, it can be a very little thing. Like say, many of us have the habit of, where I am giving you a very, very simple and everyday example. We have our habit of wearing our watch on our left hand. And it's almost unconsciously. We just take it, lift it, wear it. Even by closing our eyes, we can wear our watch. What is it if I wear it on my right hand? I may feel uncomfortable, but it's a new thing I have done. So I'm comfortable in that situation also. So confidence changes how you see the world, and then happiness has a way of finding you. Remember, happiness and love will always find their way to you if you are utterly honest to yourself, if you do not mean any kind of unhappiness, if you do not wish any kind of malice for anybody else. I am sure love and happiness will find their way. Enjoy the little things. Celebrate all the little things in search of the happy payoff, for the big payoff. So we forget to look at the little things. And I think now this is the very, very important topic, because we are really trying to look at the little things people used to do for us, be it in the form of maids not coming or drivers not coming because of this lockdown situation, or all the social help that we used to get. And now we think that how blessed we were. So focus on these little wonderful things. Before you know it, that there will be a lot of more things that life brings you. It can be the laugh of your child, or a simple pat on a back, or a simple phone call to an elderly person. Allow your feelings. We always say, I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling happy, I am feeling down, I am feeling depressed, I am feeling sad. But are we feeling our feeling? The moment I'm feeling bad, I'm trying to do something. But when I am doing that, we may say that we are drowning our feelings, but actually we are avoiding our feelings. We are not feeling our feelings. Whereas if I'm really feeling sad, why is it that I am not allowing myself to go through that feeling? Continuously, if I allow myself, at least for some time, to go through that feeling, it will be like a sponge. A sponge can take in water, absorb water, and there will a time will come when it is saturated, when it cannot absorb water. So the next step is it will wring out the water and it will be light again. So if we allow our feelings in our heart, I think we will be able to overcome the unhappy situations. So when we experience other feelings also, which in usually counseling, which we call about empathy, we call about empathizing with another person. It's a very usual term for counselors and psychologists to use. Why can't we empathize with our own self? The feelings again will move on through you, and in the process you will gain experience, and happiness will be even sweeter. So my listeners, it is almost like here, if I can, I'm not really quoting Rabindranath Tagore, but I think most of you who have read his work, or read every situation behind his every composition of poem, poetry, or a song, there has been a situation which has prompted him to write that. And Rabindranath Tagore has experienced the death of almost his 4 children out of 5 children, and his wife at a very, very young age. So a person with that, of course, he is of a different genre altogether, and we are just lesser mortals. But uh, that is what I'm trying to say, that with so much of tragedy or unhappiness in life, there also coexists a brighter side. So I think it is a coexistence of madness, order, chaos, identity, confusion, certainty, the good and the bad. Thank you. If any one of you have any question, you may post it to me now or later. Thank you.
I'm sorry for the pause. Thank you, Fujari ma'am. It was a beautiful session. We had a very good understanding. I have, okay, so Mahantesh sir has already given us all the pickup points. I have one doubt I would love to clarify from you, and I think even, okay, Ashish Chineto, he just shared his point of view. I have one doubt. You were very specific that when it comes to happiness, uh, we must not be dependent on the happiness for the moment. But the happiness should not be a factor to judge how we are feeling things. So I have one contradiction thing happening in my mind. We as counselors, when someone comes to us, the first question we ask is, "Are you happy? Are you happy with your life? Or how do you feel?" Now, if I remove this factor of happiness on the basis of how I'm understanding other person's personality, how will I actually analyze that what is going in that person's mind? I'm very much second your thought when you say that happiness can be there. We cannot be happy throughout the day, and that's very much true. I have work. I cannot just sit around being happy. I don't feel good about it because I have some deadlines to meet. So that's something which will not make me happy. So will at that moment when I'm not happy, as per the counseling regime that we are part of, we consider it not a good part of mental health. So how do we balance out that situation? That's my question.
So Ravi, if you talk about a typical counseling session, which is a professional help that you are meeting out to a client and you are asking that, are you happy? I think it is an open-ended question like we usually use, and we are trying to judge that person's state of mind instead of just trying to evaluate or judge what in the very first session about what exactly is going on through his entire life. So I don't think it is much applicable here. So the person may say, yeah, I'm happy about this, but not happy about that. So that apart is a counseling situation. But if you talk about any other cases, a very simple thing. I look forward to something. I go there, whatever be it. It can be a big bash with my friends, and I land up and I go and it's cancelled. Will I be happy or unhappy? I'm asking the audience. Of course, we will be unhappy momentarily. But if this pattern of unhappiness creeps in, that for every other reason, I will be unhappy if it doesn't meet my expectations, then it becomes embedded in my character that for every one thing that is not met, my unhappiness creeps in. I think a very, very valid point, I don't know how many parents are in this session, a very, very valid point here that immediately cropped up in my mind. Initially, I did not include this, is the instant gratification that many of the children nowadays get. So immediately, I want this, I get this. At the most, it can be a wait for 5 hours, 6 hours or 10 hours, but I get it. I'm not saying if the child wants something, you give it after 5 years. That is also a very bizarre situation. Not that, but this whole thought that I want and I get is somewhere we are compromising on the impulse control of the child also. How do you think we toilet train children? And we cannot toilet train really a 6-month-old or a 1-year-old, but we try to toilet train a 2 or a 3-year-old. So when the urge is there, I need to wait. I cannot be unhappy for every situation. Yes, it does creep in. As human beings, it does creep in. But if it becomes a pattern, it becomes your personality. If it becomes a habit, it becomes your personality, character, and the character becomes your personality. I hope I have not deviated from your question, Surbi.
No, I think you gave us a very beautiful viewpoint that happiness, if unhappiness, if it becomes a pattern, it is something which is worrisome. But occasional bouts of unhappiness or not that state of peak happiness is perfectly okay. Just because you're not into that peak state of happiness, that doesn't say that you are unhappy. I can also see the situation in a vice versa way. So yes, it's a very good, valid peak point. Though Mahantesh sir has added some point, I don't have any correlation to it. But is this question is for you? Is that something which you said? Are you trying to say it in line with Buddha? I am not aware about this.
My knowledge is very, very limited because of course, I try to read up a lot, but my knowledge is very, very limited in that. I am talking from very basic, simple examples, sir, because many of the times I have seen it with people around me, with myself also. If this goes away, right? Positive, oh, we are very happy. This doesn't go, I cannot be happy. So every moment, this expectation of what goes around next to make me happy is where we need to pause and think.
Okay, thank you very much. I think
Thank
from
you.
the session, I would love to carry forward this line that if just because something does not happen as per your expectation, and if these things are making you unhappy and are disappointing you, then there is something we need to correct about our own thought process and thinking process. So thank you very much for this takeaway tip. Now I would like to go ahead and move to our next speaker for the session. And I would like to introduce all of you with Vinod Babu sir. He has a total experience of 13 years working, from which he has dedicated approximately more than 10 years into the field of training. He has expertise into the field of life skills, soft skills, and personality development. Leadership skills is also something which he is into. And he has trained thousands of professionals into that particular field. He is also certified as a Six Sigma trainer and into emotional intelligence, NLP expert. Again, there's a big exhaustive list I don't want to get into. So welcome to the session, Vinod sir. And I would hand over this discussion to you, because I think we have already spoken about self-understanding. Then within self-understanding, we went ahead and spoke, as Purjori ma'am related, that it has become a session by itself. Then we have already spoken about happiness. Now I think you can easily help us, just digest what others have said by making us understand this thing, which is patterns of mind, and how they are playing around with all of us. So please, if you could just bring a light on the topic and today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And I would like to thank both the speakers. I enjoyed the sessions, both the sessions. So let's get into the topic. As today's my topic is patterns of mind. Am I audible to you?
I can hear you, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yes. So this topic is very closely connected. Why I chose this field of training, the behavioral training. Initially, I used to be a professional, IT professional, and I wanted to become a data scientist. So that is when I got into this course of data science. And that is where I learned how corporates are using our patterns or behavioral patterns to sell their products. So for instance, if you can check the number of items at your home, if you could take a count of it, I would say like at least 50% of the products you would have not used for the last 6 months in an average. So why you bought those products? At that point when you bought it, the corporate convinced you that it's useful for you. So let me put this way: there is a difference between influencing someone and persuading someone. Influencing is something. If you get a call from a credit card company and they convince you that the credit card is useful to you, and even though it doesn't, but they try to convince you, and that you're getting convinced. So that is influencing. So what is persuasion? Persuasion is a step ahead, wherein you will not have a clue that you're getting influenced, that they're trying to convince you. So I would say like each and every one of us has an Amazon account or any e-commerce account. If you log into that account, each and every one of us will have a different home screen based on the product you choose. So that is worked by the artificial intelligence. So they know like your working pattern, your travel pattern. So that is the pattern I'm talking about. So when we download any apps, we know that they're stealing our data. So generally there is a myth like, people think they're stealing our bank details, or they're stealing our money from the account details or those sort of things, but it is not. They are stealing way more valuable data than your bank account, because they are making more money than what they can get from your bank account in the long run. Let me explain that to you with an example. It's a small activity I would like to do, wherein a simple calculation. People who hate math don't get panicked, because it's just a couple of addition and subtraction you have to do. So if you have a pen and paper handy, well and good. So what you can do is, this has nothing to do with persuasion, but it is a metaphor of persuasion. It will give you a taste how persuasion works or how corporate works with you. Okay. So just think of a number, any number of your choice. Now I want you to double the number. For example, if my number is 10, I have to double it to 20. If it is like 100, I have to double it to 200. So whatever the number you thought, just double it. And I want you to add 30 to it, 30. So once you double it, add 30 to it, you will have an amount. So you added 30 to it. I believe you added 30 to it. Now you have a number, right? Now what you have to do is you have to split it into half. So you have to divide it by 2. You have to give me half and you keep the half. So initially we thought a number, we doubled it, we add 30 to it, we had a number. Now we are dividing it by 2. So you keep the 50% of the amount. Are we clear now? Any questions? Okay. Now, whatever the balance amount you have to remove the number which you thought initially from that amount, from that 50% what you have to remove the number which you thought initially. So you will have a balance amount. Okay. Hope you're done with that. Okay. Now in that balance amount, I want you to minus 10, 1, 0. Subtract 10 from that number. Okay. You will be having a number now. The result of, you will have a balanced number. Now I want you to assign an alphabet to that number. So you're not going to randomly assign any alphabet. Rather, I would say like in an alphabetical order. For example, from A to Z, it's 26 letters. So if your number is 2, it will be B. For example, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. So like that 1 to 26, whatever the number you have, find your alphabet in which sequence it falls under. You got your letter? You got the alphabet of your number? Okay. Now I want you to think of an animal in that alphabet. Think of an animal, not a bird or not an insect, just an animal in that alphabet. Done? So basically, whatever you did, it's of your choice. Your number is of your choice. The alphabet, the animal, everything is of your choice. Am I right? Yes? No? Maybe? Can I have an yes? Okay, great.
Yes,
so
sir.
100% your decision. Okay, great. Now, as a corporate, I said, it's my decision to sell the product and make you believe that's your decision. So as a corporate, it's my decision to sell the product. The product is elephant. How many of you chose elephant? So everybody got E. You all chose elephant. So now you still believe elephant is your choice or it's my choice?
It was your choice, basically.
Great. So that is how persuasion works. So the corporates make you believe that you're making the decision, you're buying the product of your choice, but it is not. So how it works is the data what they the data what they take off from your computers and from your mobile and your Android mobile, the smartphone basically, is your travel pattern, the pattern how you buy products, the movies you watch. So these guys know far more better information than what you do about yourself. If you hand over your mobile to me, I can tell a lot more interesting things or a lot more things which you don't know about yourself. So that is how data science works. So this made me work more towards it. So why patterns are so important now is, so we all know there are two minds, conscious mind and subconscious mind. And we also know the fact that 90% of the work is done by subconscious mind and only 10% is work by conscious mind. So what do you mean by conscious mind? Conscious mind is something I'm talking to you right now, which I'm doing consciously, right? So in an average, a normal person can simultaneously, at a time, can work up to 4 to 5 tasks consciously, like listening to music, driving a car, or writing a thing and answering the phone. Like you can work on 2 to 3 or 4 tasks simultaneously. But when it comes to subconscious mind, do you have any idea what is the count would be? Any guess? There is no right answer or wrong answer. You can just give a guess. 10%. No, I'm just asking the count. Like, as I said, for conscious, it is like 4 to 5 tasks. 0. Okay. Actually, it's trillions of tasks. You cannot count because each and every cell of your body is controlled by your subconscious mind. For example, your breathing. You're not consciously breathing, right? If you try to breathe consciously, that is the only task you will do for the 24 hours. So that is taken care by your subconscious mind. So the conscious mind is the gateway for your subconscious mind. So it is the one which tells your subconscious mind what is the reality is. For instance, imagine there is a lemon, a juicy lemon on your hand. And you're biting that lemon. And when you bite that lemon, you feel the juice on your tongue. When you just imagine that, you'll start salivating, right? Even though there is no lemon, but still your body responds to it. The reason is Your conscious mind is telling to the subconscious mind there is a lemon, and the subconscious mind believes whatever the conscious mind says. Now, why the pattern is so important again is we all have getting into the pattern now. When I say 90% of the things are controlled by your subconscious mind, in a day, 90% of the time we are in autopilot mode. Let me explain what is the autopilot mode first. Every day morning we brush our teeth, right? So even though we are not consciously doing it, we will not miss a single stroke. We will do the same exact stroke, even though if you're listening to music or reading a book and brushing or watching the TV and brushing, you will do the exact same stroke. Even it is 10 days ago or 6 months ago, even after 6 months after now, you will do the same thing because that's your pattern you have been following. You will sit on the same seat in a cafeteria. You will take the same seat if it's an office bus, you will tend to sit in the same seat. So these are the patterns we follow. So why we are following these patterns are, our subconscious mind is kind of a lazy. So it doesn't want to use more energy into it, into thinking. So if the subconscious mind knew that you're getting into a routine, it tries to convert that into a pattern. Because when you're aware with your conscious mind, your brain will get tired. So that is the reason when you read a book or when you think of something, you tend to yawn more because 80% of your oxygen has been consumed by your brain. The more you think, the more tired you get. You tend to yawn because the yawning gives you instant oxygen. So that's the reason you yawn. So subconscious mind, what it does is when it thinks like, this guy takes this route. For example, when you drive from your office to your home or home to your office, the moment when you start your car or bike and reach office, you will not 100% be aware of the whole road, whatever you see, because you get into the subconscious, into autopilot mode. You'll be shifting the gear, you'll be applying the brake, you will not remember the whole thing. Like you will be thinking about something by the time you will reach home. The reason why is you get into the autopilot mode. So getting into autopilot mode, it is good or bad. If you ask me, it is really bad. I'll tell you the reason why. Once you get into the autopilot mode, it is like you will be alive, but you're not living. So that's the reason people don't remember things, because they're not aware of, because they get into autopilot mode. You will do all the things regularly, but it is like a robo you're doing in a programmed way. So how to break this? There are two ways you can break this. One is being conscious about what you do. Second is breaking the pattern. Let me tell you what is the breaking the pattern is. For instance, you can change the route what you take from home to office. Even though it is a bit, a longer distance, or it is like 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers extra, try to take a different route to your office. What happens is when you take a different route, your conscious mind comes into picture, and it says like, okay, this guy is trying to do something new, so you have to be aware of it. So you will be aware, you will start, you will not get into a pattern. So if for 2 or 3 days try to take a route and a different route, you come back to the old route. So don't follow the routine again and again. Try to break the routine. Start breaking the routine. The more patterns you will break, you will not get into a routine pattern. Basically, which will not put you into autopilot. The second part I would say is some people will say like, my job is a routine job. When I go to office, this is the same routine job I'm doing, so there is no way I can break it. But again, there is a way. There is something called mindfulness, which we all know. Mindfulness is something like we are aware of the current situation. For example, you're all sitting in a chair or sofa. Now just be aware of the cloth which is on your body, the feet which is touching your floor. For a second, now you will feel everything. The clothes on your body, the floor, and all that. So that is being, mindfulness. Like being aware of the current situation, like what is around me, how I feel, mindfulness eating, mindfulness sleeping. There are a lot of things for mindfulness. If my voice is not clear, I think someone is.
I've muted them, so you may continue.
So as I was saying, there are two ways of breaking it. One is breaking your routines. So don't try to sit on the same chair when you go to office or when you go to a cafeteria. Don't try to sit on the same place. Try a different place. You will feel the difference that you are always awake. You will remember more things in a long run. So there was a research done which was on the YouTube and TEDx. They did an interview with all the top CEOs around the world in different sectors like manufacturing, IT, and so on, finance. So what is the top skill needed to be a CEO or to be a successful person? The top skill was to be creative. The creativity is the one which stood first to become a top CEO or to be a successful person. To become creative, the basic first step is to break your patterns. Because if you don't break your patterns, you will be in autopilot mode. If you're going to be in autopilot mode, there is no way you're going to think about the other way how to do things. So when I say patterns, these were the patterns I really want to talk about, because people really don't realize what exactly the corporates are stealing from you. It is not your financial data or your banking details. It is the data of your patterns. So these data are so valuable. They can, as I said, they can sell you anything if they know the pattern. Then they can make you believe that this is what you really want. And of course, you will start believing it. So that is how the patterns work. And to break the patterns, please use these 2 steps. It'll be really helpful. So that's about the patterns. If you have any questions, you can go for it.
We have certain beautiful understandings over here regarding the pattern part. So do we have questions in this respect by anyone? Like I'm looking forward for a complete session for sure, Vinod Babu. So I will be contacting you to learn more about new things about patterns of brain. I think my brain patterns are always haphazard. So I would need, we have Paulson Joseph sir joining up, but he's late now. Okay, so anyone has any questions? I think it was a curious topic for us to have questions with. Yeah. Okay, I have one question, sir. Like you work with corporates and you're talking about breaking the patterns and you're talking about just not following the autopilot mode. I don't have much understanding about corporates, but because I don't appreciate them much for one. But yes, as far as I understand, they intentionally or maybe unintentionally develop a culture which is more autopilot run, because you don't want people to use much of their brains. You want them to follow the SOPs they have created, and you want them to be so particular that they follow that routine, because there are many processes which require some consistent effort. There are processes which require one to follow the task 1, then task 2, then task 3. And if someone is not following that pattern, you cannot build a consistency throughout the company. That is for one. So at a personal point of view, I very much agree with you that yes, I need to break my patterns. I need to, forgive the autopilot mode at times and let my brain work. But when I think from a point of view of a company owner, or a point of view from a school principal, or any such that position, I don't want my employees to break the patterns they are in. I want them to be strictly operational as per the autopilot sense. So in that perspective, where do we fit? Because we talk about so many theories, but at many times I feel that all theories don't fit in to all sorts of needs. So where would you suggest this theory or the practicality? Maybe we have a session with you in future, we can discuss it more, will fit in over here.
Okay. Since I'm from a corporate background, let me answer to that. Because in corporates, the management works so hard to put the employees in the pattern.
Yeah.
So it is basically like, it's about your self-awareness and your self-development. If you really want to feel like you have to develop yourself, by breaking the patterns, I'm not telling like breaking the rules or the SOPs. What I'm trying to say is, when you break the pattern, for example, it's in a corporate, especially in IT, it is not like you have to sit in the assigned chair. You can sit anywhere, like, within your team. So when you sit in a different chair or different place, you will be in a self-awareness state. You will not get into autopilot mode, because the surroundings are different. So the mind will be 100% aware of like, this guy is doing something different. It is not the same system or the same chair or the same surrounding, same cubicle. So it will be aware. So the concentration will be more, you will know what exactly you're doing. Even though it is kind of a routine job, just change something. For example, the last speaker said, like, tie your walls from left to right. That is breaking a pattern. These simple breaking patterns will help you a lot. It is not like, I'm not trying to say you have to break the rules, go against, work against what they ask you to do. Not that. What I'm trying to say is, just change the way you work. Just try to change some small differences you make around you. That will help you to subconsciously, your conscious mind to get into awareness. If not, if it is going to be the same surroundings around you, or the same things you're going to do, your subconscious mind will take the control, where it will put you into pattern. So you will do the exact same thing, same output. For instance, for a given day, we have a thoughts of around 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts per day. So yeah, that's an average. So these thoughts can get into emotions, and this emotions leads to a behavior, and these behaviors leads to an action. That is the output of the outcome. So you can ask me, if you have so much of thoughts, thousands of thoughts, each and every day I should be performing different actions, but I'm not. The reason is, more than 95% you're going to have the same thoughts each and every day. So the 60,000 to 70 or 80,000 thoughts is going to be the same today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow. So the same emotions, same behavior, and same output. There is not going to be a change. So if you want to change the way you think or the thought, you have to change, you have to break the pattern.
Okay, now this also makes me curious. I kept on working on something, which is, we talk about making our kids creative, or having creativity in kids. But I always question this part. Somebody who's born talented in that area, maybe who thinks differently, that's a different point. But I know kids who think very straight, who follow instructions, who understand things. And when we are nurturing them in that particular manner since childhood, that you give instructions and they follow, you give instructions and they follow, and then all of a sudden when they grow up, we ask them to be creative. That happens. So when we are talking about these patterns of mind, can you just help me out in this point, that how I can think about connecting this topic to creativity, and to what extent are we talking about it, or we are just talking about just some sort of a brainstorming when you talk about breaking the patterns?
Okay, actually there was a research done based on this anyways, wherein they went to a school kids. For the first grade, they asked, like, what is your hobby? Like, how many people would like to be an artist? How many students want to be an artist? The whole class stood like, I want to become an artist, because all the kids like to draw. And they went to the third grade, everybody stood and said, I want to become an artist. And when it comes to sixth grade, it became like 50%. When they went to the 8th grade, it was like less than 10%. The reason is, we are all born artists, and we forget that when we become adult. It was said by Picasso, the great artist. So the reason, there was a activity which is famously called as marshmallows activities, wherein, like, the top Oxford, the University of Oxford, Yale University conducted the research, wherein the top business people, CEOs and VPs were called in, and there were other set of people who were called in. All they had was like a set of spaghettis, a long stick like straws, and they have marshmallows. And all they have to do is construct it, who construct the highest tower within a given span of time. So these people started building, and the other set of people started doing. And every time they conduct this, the other set of people won. The other set of people were nothing but like, they were like 8 years or 9 years old kids who won against the VPs and CEOs. The reason is they get into the act because they are very creative. In the later run, the creativity is, kind of getting down. The reason is, I'll tell you, when it comes to creativity, we are nurturing the child to stick to one thing. For example, if you ask in our generation, what is A for? It's I for apple, B for ball. But whose rule is A for it should be apple? It can be aeroplane. It can be anything. So that is where we are killing the creativity from the childhood itself. So when it comes to A for, every time you give a different examples, don't stick with apple. So when you start doing this, okay, I do have many options. Each kid should come with a different option for A. Each kid should come with a different option for B. So one kid will come with ball for B, one kid will come with balloon. So kid will, okay, there are many options. If not, I will stick to A for apple and B for ball till I die. So that is where we have to nurture the creativity within the kids.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think I'm done with my set of questions, and you have made your point and connected. Though it's a topic I would love to discuss more, and maybe all of us, but it will consume a lot of time for sure. We are
Yes.
already done with the committed time. So, does anyone has any question? I don't think so. Anything in the chat section? Though we have a viewpoint, and yes, we can have our own viewpoints in that regard. But do we have any other candidate who wants to make some point? Okay. All the speakers, ma'am. The session was thank you, Urshita ma'am. Thank you very much for the feedback. Okay, so I would love to brief the session for those who joined up late in this regard. I think we started with Roshan sir, and he gave us quite a good understanding into self. In the beginning, he shared certain tools, and he ignited the session because the session went into the direction he started with. So we understood how it's important to the self-exploration journey. We all keep on talking about it, but yes, he gave us quite valid points over there. And I would love to brief what Mahantesh sir has already written, that know thyself, and people join to engage in psychological activities. Then he gave us some good references about HR and corporate, and yes, the lovely part about emotional vampires and why it is important that we stay away from them. I don't know if these days we can stay away from emotional vampires. Everybody is free, so I'm not sure, but yes, that was a valid point, and obviously some positive suggestions or auto suggestions which he gave. Then we had Fulgari ma'am who had to leave because she had some more commitments to take care of. So she messaged me personally. I still love to thank you for her participation. She gave some beautiful points about happiness, that as locus control should be within, not outside. Be honest to your feelings, and empathy was one factor she spoke about. What I loved more about, and I said that as a takeaway point at that moment also, that being happy is something, but being in a state when every time you don't get things according to your will and you become unhappy, that is something which is worrisome, and we have to be careful about it, that we don't develop that particular pattern. And so she spoke about happiness pattern, and Vinod sir spoke about breaking the pattern, and why it is important that we break patterns, that we should not remain in autopilot mode, that for once in a while we must try and break the pattern and do something different. He gave us some points from how data science is I will love the activity. I'm stealing it away from my session into digital safety for sure, and I'm stealing away that activity for sure. That's what the sessions are for. And then he spoke about subconscious mind, and then autopilot mode and a lot many points which he gave us insight into. So I believe it was a beautiful session with all the participants who were there. Somebody's asking for recording it. As soon as we finish it, I'm uploading this session. You all will have the session for the recording. So in just almost half an hour, you will have the link with all of you. Everything is ready. So thank you very much. Thank you for the participation. I think it's a good beginning to begin with. It was a good practice we all did today. I'm hoping that from the coming week, we will meet every week at this time, and we will have certain speakers just sharing knowledge. But if any one of you wants to has some complete session they want to share with the group, I would love to help you out in doing that. Please let me know, share your views, and we could arrange that. Thank you for being part of the session. Thank you very much. Okay, so anyone has to say anything? Just last chance, and then I'm just ending the session. Do we have any feedback? I think no, everybody has given it in chat section. Next time I will ask everybody to switch on the video so that people are not just going away when we are sitting here. It's almost like a school class. So we'll make sure. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we can still have a thumbs up. You have that in your session. We can have a thumbs up or a clap in the chat section. Yes, I can see you coming up. Thank you very much. So I've taken a screenshot as a proof who joined up, and so you will have them in the pics. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye. Have a nice day.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you so much.